As an arm of the United Nations, the WHO relies on contributions from member states and private donors. It's received just over €5 billion in funding last year, and the largest single contributor was the United States. They gave nearly €820 million last year. President Trump says the WHO failed in its response to the crisis by putting too much faith in China. China gave about €79 million to the organisation last year, and Beijing has slammed Trump's decision to pull funding. Now the WHO is caught between two of the world's most dominant powers, as Neil O'Reilly reports.
As China waged its coronavirus battle, a confrontation was taking shape between the White House and the World Health Organization. It was fueled by perceptions that Beijing had initially underreported the severity of the crisis. When China did start cooperating with the international community, the WHO was generous in its praise. In late January, its Director General thanked President Xi in person.
And side by side, you have started serious public health measures. And this is very, very important, and really we're proud that. And the other important element is the political commitment and your personal leadership, which we have been following, and also your team, which will help to stop this virus.
Such comments underpin Donald Trump's complaint that the WHO's approach has been China-centric, in his words. In contrast, he began referring to COVID-19 as the Chinese virus, and he bristled when the Global Health Agency implicitly criticised his China travel ban.
They criticised me very strongly when I said that we're going to shut down flights coming in from China, and especially from certain parts of China, but from China generally. We were criticized very badly. And the WHO, World Health, got it wrong. I mean, they got it very wrong. In many ways, they were wrong. They also minimized the threat very strongly.
Since the failure of the travel ban to halt the epidemic in the US, Trump has doubled down on his attacks on China and the WHO, culminating in the decision to withhold financial support for the UN body. The drastic measure has drawn severe criticism from rivals and allies. On Twitter, the EU's Josep Borrell said there was no justification for the move when the WHO was needed more than ever. As the death toll mounts in the States, Trump's domestic opponents say the president's actions are an attempt to deflect blame for a crisis that would have been less severe had his administration followed the recommendations of the WHO on containing the disease. Neil O'Reilly, Euronews.
Let's cross over to Washington, D.C. now, where we can speak to Professor Lawrence Gostin. He is director of the O'Neill Institute for National and Global Health Law at Georgetown University. Thanks very much for taking the time to speak with us here. Just how big an impact do you think this is going to have?
Well, you know, in terms of funding, it probably won't have very much impact, because I predict that there's going to be many countries that fill the void that's left by President Trump, particularly, I think, the Eurozone, the Nordic states, and even China. So I think that WHO will recoup the funding. But this is, make no mistake, a horrific event. When the President of the United States criticizes the World Health Organization, withdraws U.S. funding in the middle of a once-in-a-century pandemic. I really think that this is a bridge too far, and it will come back to haunt the United States, and haunt it badly. I think Trump has taken this just too far now.
Lawrence, me and the team here have been looking into the statement of accounts of the money that was due to be paid to the WHO. It looks like the US hasn't paid since January last year. It looks like it's still got an outstanding payment to make of around $200 million. So it begs the question of, was this really a stopping of payments, or whether they'd already been stopped? Do you think that this is ultimately a political move by the US president as he struggles into the election period, knowing full well that the economy has tanked and that was one of his biggest tickets he was hoping to campaign on?
Well, you know, I think it's a political move. What's what's very clear and what's very sad is that the World Health Organization has been caught in the middle of a vast geopolitical struggle between the two superpowers. And President Trump wanting to call it the Wuhan virus or the Chinese virus. He blocked the G7 resolution on COVID-19 because they wouldn't call it the Chinese virus. So this is toxic, and it's a political body blow to the World Health Organization because just when this is poised to ravage sub-Saharan Africa and other parts of the world, the Middle East, the Indian subcontinent, where WHO is needed most, they're going to be distracted and worried about the political recriminations. It's really, quite simply unconscionable. And I think that America is losing all of its influence, all of its voice in international affairs around health. And now, at the critical moment when we're trying to fight a deadly killer, killing hundreds of thousands of people worldwide.
But Lawrence, we heard there from Dr. Tedros, who is the Director General of the WHO, and he says that the organisation is going to do its own assessment and look at how it has handled this pandemic. And it says that it's probably going to find that there was opportunities missed and things that they could have done better. What do you think the WHO could have done better here?
Well, I do believe that that the critical moments why the world is in this mess is because there was a period of, say, 4 to 6 weeks, up to a month and a half, when COVID-19 was being transmitted human to human in Wuhan and Greater Hubei province, with a lot of travel outside that district internationally and to mainland China. And China was not transparent. They reported very late to the WHO, and they also gave misinformation saying that it was limited or no human transmission. That was horrific. And the WHO nonetheless praised China during that period. I think that that was unwise. But having said that, during the same period, President Trump was also praising Xi Jinping of China. And so I think it's hypocritical for the United States to shift the blame. Listen, we could see with our own two eyes what was happening. First, the cases were sweeping across China. Then they moved like a tsunami to East Asia, Japan, Singapore, South Korea. Then it moved to Europe, Italy, Spain, UK, and now in the United States. And we did nothing to prepare and to prevent that tsunami coming our way. How can we blame anyone else but ourselves? We need to look in the mirror.
Thanks very much for that. Professor Lawrence Gostin joining us here from Georgetown University over in the US.